Let me start with a question. If I offered you $1 million right now, or the ability to think, create, and attract millions for the rest of your life, which would you choose? Most people would grab the money, but the truly wealthy, the truly awake, the ones who understand the game of life, they'd take the mind. Because as Robert Kiyosaki said and lived, your mind is your greatest asset. And that, my friend, is one of the most powerful truths you will ever hear, because wealth doesn't start in your wallet, it starts in your mind. Freedom doesn't begin in your circumstances, it begins in your thinking. Everything you see around you, every company, every invention, every empire, started as a single thought in someone's mind. The mind is where everything begins. Robert Kiyosaki grew up hearing two very different voices. One was his biological father, his poor dad, a man educated, intelligent, hardworking, but limited by his beliefs about money and success. The other was his rich dad, his best friend's father, a man who taught him that the secret to wealth wasn't in working harder, but in thinking smarter. And that's where this philosophy was born. Your mind is your greatest asset. Because the poor dad said, go to school, get a safe job. But the rich dad said, develop your mind, and it will create jobs. One focused on security, the other focused on creativity. One traded time for money. The other created systems that made money work for him. The difference wasn't luck. It was mindset. Let me tell you something. The mind is the most powerful tool in the universe, but it's also the most dangerous weapon if you don't learn how to control it. Because the same mind that can make you rich can also make you broke. The same mind that can make you happy can also make you miserable. The mind is neutral. It just follows its programming. If you fill it with fear, doubt, and scarcity, it will produce fear, doubt, and scarcity. If you feed it with courage, creativity, and abundance, it will produce courage, creativity, and abundance. So the question isn't whether your mind is powerful, it's whether you're driving it or being driven by it. You see, Robert Kiyosaki understood that money is not the goal. Mastery is. If you master your mind, money becomes easy. If you don't, money becomes your master. And that's where most people live, as prisoners of their own thinking. They think, I can't afford that. I'm not smart enough. I wasn't born into wealth. They repeat those thoughts until they become their truth. But what if I told you that every limitation you believe about yourself was installed by someone else, by teachers, parents, media, or even society? You weren't born limited. You were taught to be. Your mind is like a garden. If you don't plant the right seeds, weeds will take over by default. And that's why most people stay trapped, not because they lack potential, but because they never learn to tend their own garden. They fill their minds with junk, negativity, gossip, fear, distraction, and then wonder why their life doesn't bloom. Meanwhile, the rich, the free, the fulfilled, they treat their mind like sacred ground. They feed it ideas, challenges, books, mentors, experiences that stretch and elevate them. Because they know what goes in, comes out. Garbage in, garbage out. Greatness in, greatness out. That's not philosophy, that's neurology. Think about it like this. Your mind is your internal operating system. If you run an outdated program, one built on fear and scarcity, you'll keep crashing every time opportunity knocks. If you upgrade your system, by feeding it new beliefs, new knowledge, new possibilities, you become unstoppable. That's what the rich dad taught Kiyosaki. He didn't just give him financial advice, he gave him mental upgrades. He said, don't work for money. Make money work for you. That one sentence flips the entire financial paradigm. It's not about effort, it's about education. It's not about labor, it's about leverage. And leverage begins in the mind. You might be thinking, yeah, but my situation is different. I've got bills, I've got responsibilities, I don't have time to think big. And I get that. But here's the truth. You don't have time not to. Because if you don't take time to build your mind, you'll spend your whole life fixing problems your old thinking created. You can work harder and harder, but if your mind hasn't grown, your life won't either. That's why some people can make millions and lose it all, because their mindset didn't evolve to match their income. The money outgrew the mind, and the mind pulled it back down. That's what Kiyosaki means when he says your mind is your greatest asset, because it's the one thing that determines whether your success is temporary or permanent. Let me be real with you. If you want to build wealth, if you want freedom, if you want peace, you must start by mastering your inner game. Not your bank account, not your business plan, not your networking skills, your mind. Because you can lose your money, your job, your house, but if you have the right mindset, you can rebuild it all. That's what the rich understand. That's what the free live by. They don't fear loss because they've invested in the one asset that can never be taken away, their mind. Now let's talk about you. Right now, you're sitting on the most valuable resource in existence, but most people never even realize it because they never use it to its potential. They use their mind to worry instead of create. They use it to replay the past instead of design the future. They use it to survive instead of build. You have to flip that switch. Your mind is not a storage unit. It's a factory. It's meant to produce, to invent, to imagine, to build. So the real question is, what are you creating with it? Because every thought is a seed. And if you're not growing wealth, wisdom, and freedom, maybe it's time to plant something new. That's where transformation begins. When you stop treating your mind like a mirror of your past and start treating it like a window to your future. Kiyosaki's message wasn't get rich quick. It was get smart forever. Because if you invest in your mind, you invest in everything. That's the investment that compounds for life. Let's go deeper. If your mind truly is your greatest asset, then you and we have to start treating it like one. Think about how you treat your money. You protect it, you track it, you invest it, you work to multiply it. Now imagine what your life would look like if you treated your mind the same way. If you protected your attention as fiercely as your bank balance. If you tracked your thoughts like financial transactions. If you invested your energy in ideas that paid dividends for years. If you multiplied your mindset instead of just your workload. That's how the rich think. That's how the free live. They don't waste their most valuable asset, their mind, on low returns. They don't spend their thoughts on worry, gossip, or fear. They allocate their mental capital toward creation, strategy, and growth. They use their mind. They don't let it use them. See, most people never realize that they are investors. Every thought you think is an investment. Every belief you hold compounds interest over time, in either direction. If you believe I can't, you'll subconsciously look for proof that you can't. You'll ignore opportunities that contradict your belief. And one day you'll look around and say, see, I was right. Not because it was true, but because your mind created the evidence. Your beliefs are blueprints, and your life just builds what your mind designs. That's why you have to guard your mental real estate like a fortress. Every word, every image, every conversation is like a deposit or a withdrawal from your mental bank. So ask yourself, what are you letting in? What's being installed into your system? Because if your inputs are small, your outputs will be smaller. If your circle is negative, your results will reflect that. I'm telling you, you cannot build $1 million future with a $100 mindset. And yet that's what most people try to do. They want success without changing their mental software. They want abundance, but still think like the broke version of themselves. That doesn't work. That never works. Robert Kiyosaki once said something brilliant. If you want to change your life, first change what you feed your mind. It's simple, it's obvious, but it's everything. Because your brain is not a vault. It's a sponge. It soaks up whatever you expose it to, and it doesn't care whether it's garbage or gold. That's why you need to be ruthless about your information diet. Feed it books, not gossip. Feed it mentors, not complainers. Feed it ideas, not excuses. You become what you consume. And when you start feeding your mind with wisdom, discipline, and strategy, everything around you begins to rise. Your energy changes. Your confidence grows. Your decisions sharpen. You start seeing opportunities where you once saw obstacles. Because now your mind is trained to create value, not just chase it. Let me tell you a truth I learned the hard way. The size of your success will always match the size of your thinking. If your goals are small, your effort will be small. If your vision is limited, your life will stay limited. It's not life that holds you back. It's your thinking about life. Your income, your relationships, your health, they are all mirrors. They reflect your internal settings. And if you don't like what you see, don't smash the mirror. Change the settings. That's what mental investment is. Upgrading the code that runs your reality. Now let's get practical. How do you train your mind to become your greatest asset? Here's the truth. It's not about adding more information. It's about upgrading your mental operating system. There are 3 levels to it. Awareness, control, direction, awareness. You can't change what you can't see. So start noticing your thoughts like an observer, not a victim. Pay attention to how you talk to yourself, because every "I can't" is a seed of limitation. Every "I can" is a seed of possibility. Awareness is the moment you wake up and realize, wait a second, I've been running someone else's program. That's where real power begins, not in doing more, but in seeing clearer. Control. Once you become aware, you take back the steering wheel. You stop letting fear, anger, or scarcity drive your life. You decide what to focus on. Because what you focus on expands. You can't control everything, but you can control your attention. And your attention is your most valuable currency. Spend it wisely. If you constantly think about problems, you'll multiply them. If you focus on solutions, you'll start finding them everywhere. The world doesn't change, your lens does. Direction. Once you have awareness and control, you set direction. You consciously feed your mind with ideas that pull you forward. That's how you turn your mind into a magnet for wealth. That's how you build what Kiyosaki calls financial intelligence. Because financial freedom isn't about having more, it's about knowing more. When your mind is trained to see opportunity, to calculate risk, to make strategic moves, then wealth becomes a game you can actually win. You see, poor people trade time for money. Rich people trade ideas for value. The difference isn't resources, it's resourcefulness. It's not what's in their pockets, it's what's in their head. And that's the mindset you and I have to build. One that looks at a problem and says, there's a way. There's always a way. Because there is. And your mind can find it if you let it. Kiyosaki used to say, if you want to be rich, don't focus on money. Focus on education. He didn't mean school. He meant financial education. He meant learning how money works, how assets grow, how liabilities drain, how cash flow moves. But most importantly, he meant thinking like an owner, not an employee. Owners use their minds to build systems. Employees rent their minds to someone else's system. That's the difference between living in control and living on a leash. So here's the challenge I want to give you right now. Start treating your mind like your most precious portfolio. Ask yourself daily, what am I learning today? What new thought am I installing? What belief am I upgrading? Because every time you expand your mind, you expand your world. Every book you read is a new tool. Every mentor you study is a new system. Every challenge you face is a new upgrade. If you train your mind to learn faster than life can throw problems at you, you'll always be one step ahead. That's mental wealth. You see, the rich don't pray for easier lives. They build stronger minds. They don't avoid problems. They grow to match them. They don't wait for opportunities. They create them. And that's the secret. That's why Kiyosaki said, your mind is your greatest asset. Because once you master your mind, you can master your money, your time, your emotions, and your destiny. You and I have talked about how your mind is the foundation of everything. Now let's talk about the next level, how to own it. Because you don't just want to have a strong mind, you want to have a mind that works for you, even when you're tired, scared, or uncertain. That's mastery. That's wealth. That's freedom. See, the biggest challenge isn't the economy. It's not the market. It's not your background or your environment. The biggest challenge is your programming. You can't build a new future with old code. You can't create abundance with a scarcity mindset. And that's why the real war is never out there. It's in here, in your thoughts, in your self-talk, in that quiet voice that whispers, can I really do this? Because that voice, that's the gatekeeper to everything. You can have talent, skill, even opportunity, but if your mind isn't ready, you'll sabotage yourself before you ever begin. Robert Kiyosaki once said something I'll never forget. Don't let the fear of losing stop you from playing the game. And that's what separates the winners from the watchers. The winners play, the watchers hesitate. Both have fear, but only one moves anyway. Because they understand that fear isn't the enemy. Fear is fuel. When your mind is trained, fear becomes energy. It's no longer a wall, it's a signal. It tells you this is where the growth is. And when you understand that, truly understand it, you start running toward what scares you because you know it's leading you somewhere higher. Let's be honest. Every person you admire started from uncertainty. Robert Kiyosaki was broke before he became wealthy. He failed, got rejected, got criticized. But he didn't stop learning. He didn't stop investing in his mind. And that's what allowed him to turn his pain into purpose, his lessons into leverage. Every setback became an upgrade because he trained his mind to see opportunities others missed. Now, I want to speak directly to you. You've got dreams. You've got fire. You've got something inside that's been waiting to break free. But maybe you've been doubting yourself. Maybe life knocked you down one too many times. Maybe you started believing you weren't enough. Listen to me. You are enough. You have everything you need, right here, right in your mind. The problem isn't that you're not capable. The problem is that you haven't activated what's already inside you. Because when you shift your mindset, you shift your entire life. So here's what I want you to do, starting today. Every morning, before you look at your phone, before you check the world, check your thoughts. Ask yourself, what's running me today? Fear or faith? Scarcity or abundance? Excuses or execution? That one question will change everything. Because once you take control of your mental energy, you stop being a passenger in your own life. You become the driver. And that's what Robert Kiyosaki was really teaching, that wealth, freedom, and success all begin with mental ownership. You own your thoughts, you own your beliefs, you own your life. The mind, my friend, is the ultimate multiplier. When you build it, everything else follows. Money, opportunities, relationships, they all orbit around your mindset. Because money flows to intelligence, opportunity flows to awareness, and success flows to self-belief. So if you want to build something that lasts, start by building the one thing no one can take away, your mind. Train it, challenge it, expand it. That's the real investment. That's the real freedom. And I'll leave you with this. Your mind can be your prison or your passport. It can hold you back or it can open worlds. It all depends on who's in charge, you or your programming. So make a choice. Decide to be the master of your mind, not its slave. Because once you do that, no matter what happens out there, you'll always have power in here. And that's the essence of Kiyosaki's message. Your mind is your greatest asset. This was Immortal Quotes, where words of the greats become energy for the next generation. If this episode moved you, if it lit something inside you, don't let it fade. Feed it. Build on it. Take it with you into your next decision, your next project, your next dream. And remember, your wealth, your freedom, your peace, they all begin in the same place, your mind. So protect it, invest in it, and watch how the world transforms around you. Because the world doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you believe you deserve. And when your mind knows its worth, everything changes. Coming up next, episode 4. Wealth is not about having a lot of money. It's about having a lot of options. Chris Rock. In the next episode, we'll dive into the true definition of wealth. Not the number in your account, but the freedom in your choices. We'll explore how to design a life of options, how to create flexibility, and how to build a mindset that values time, purpose, and freedom over status or possessions. Because real wealth isn't measured in dollars. It's measured in possibilities. This is Immortal Quotes. I'm your host, reminding you, the greatest investment, the greatest power, the greatest freedom begins in your mind. Now go out there and make it unstoppable.